Hello and welcome back to Bicycle Legs and another edition of Studio Albums Ranked. Today I'm going to be looking at the vast catalogue of the genius that was Frank Zappa. Now obviously I'm not going to be able to rank all of his albums. He released 62 albums just in his lifetime, and there's been at least another 60 more since. So what I'm going to be doing is a top 10. I'm looking at quote-unquote studio albums. Again, like bands like The Nice or King Crimson, sometimes there's a bit of a blur between what is studio and what is live. What I have left out for certain is anything that's specifically marketed as a live album. Also, I should just quickly tell you my personal preferences with Frank Zappa's music, because I mean, with the catalogue as vast as his, it's very hard to like absolutely everything in his catalogue. My preference, which will become pretty obvious when you see my top 10, is for the 60s and 70s Zappa Mothers albums. I'm not so much into the 80s music, either the stuff that was sort of even more than usual, sort of comedy influenced, more sort of commercial, or those sort of instrumental albums that were mostly done on synclavier. I'm also not a huge fan of the Flo and Eddie period of the Mothers. The rest of the catalogue is wonderful though, and just narrowing it down to 10 was a very difficult task. I had my 10 and then I crossed a couple off and had to add a couple more, but I've kept it to 10, and so let's get into it and start with my number 10, which is from 1970, and that is Weasel's Ripped My Flesh. I mean, one of the best album titles ever, for a start. This and my next one were kind of two albums of a piece. They were recorded, or they were released around the same time, and there's a lot of conceptual similarities, I should say. This one's more got live material than studio, but it is just still a mix of studio and live stuff. This is really the Mothers at their most sort of chaotic and improvisational. Wonderful tracks on here. Did You Get Any On Ya? They do a fabulous cover of Little Richard's Directly From My Heart to You. The incredibly titled and wonderful piece of music, Prelude to the Afternoon of a Sexually Aroused Gas Mask. Wonderful pieces on here. My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama. Oh No is a sort of biting rebuttal to All You Need Is Love by the Beatles. The Orange County Lumber Truck, and then you've got the title track. Really wonderful album. And similar to that, but with more studio stuff, is my number 9, and it's also from 1970, and that is Burnt Weenie Sandwich. Little House I Used to Live In is the absolute epic on this album. It's on side 2. It's an incredible composition. It's one of Frank's just best examples of pure composition. Completely self-taught composer, which just amazes me. But you've also got their cover of WPLJ. They do Igor's Boogie Phase 1 and Phase 2, theme from Burnt Weenie Sandwich, Overture to Holiday in Berlin, and then you've got Holiday in Berlin full blown. Mostly instrumental. Really good album, love it. Speaking of albums that are mostly instrumental, my next two definitely fit that category as well. And they are both from 1972. My number 8 is going to be the Grand Wazoo. This is sort of Zappa big band style. It starts off with the song for Calvin and his next two hitchhikers, which I think sort of presages what he would do a little later on, sort of 73, 74, 75, with those bands that he put together, and you'll definitely see some of those albums coming up. Then you get the instrumental sort of big band jazz fusion kind of pieces like the Grand Wazoo, the title track, Cletus or Ritus or Ritus, Eat That Question and Blessed Relief. Fabulous, fabulous album. Also released in 1972 is my number 7. Also very much a mostly instrumental jazz fusion album, and that is Waka Jawaka. Just had its 50th anniversary if you watched my July anniversary album show. Big Swifty takes up the whole of side 1. And then you get a couple of shorter pieces, again, sort of song pieces with Your Mouth and It Just Might Be a One-Shot Deal. And then you get the title track, Waka Jawaka, which is just, again, wonderful, incredible jazz fusion compositions with some wonderful improvisation on them as well. Now, my next two albums, again, very much of a piece. They were recorded together at the same time and released as two separate albums. My number 6 is going to be from 1973, Over-Nite Sensation. I mean, some classic Frank Zappa songs on here. Camarillo Brillo, I'm the Slime, Dirty Love, Zombie Wolf, Dynamo Humming Montana. He's going to raise that crop of dental floss. Just fabulous. I love this period of Zappa's output. The band was wonderful. It was a wonderful combination of the complex sort of progressive jazz rock, jazz fusion, progressive rock kind of thing that he was doing, but with that humor coming in, the lyrics. These are much more songs with lyrics, and but they're funny and they're great. Really, really love them. And then recorded around about the same time, but released the next year in 1974 is my number 5, which is Apostrophe. This one just pips Over-Nite Sensation for me, simply because this has the St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast Suite, which I've always loved. You Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, Nanook Rubs It, St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast, and Father Oblivion. Then you get Cosmic Debris, Eccentrical Force, the title track, which is with Jack Bruce and Jim Gordon. Uncle Remus is great, and Stinkfoot closes the album out, which is really, really cool. Again, as I said, really love this period of the band that Zappa had together for these albums. And we'll see a little bit more of it as it comes along. But my number 4 is going to be the debut Mothers album from 1966. And that is Freak Out. This is where it all began. A double album to start your career is an incredible statement of intent. And it starts off with the wonderful Hungry Freaks Daddy, and then it's got I Ain't Got No Heart. Who Are the Brain Police? What an incredible song for 1966. It's just so bizarre and weird, and lyrically it's just satirical and wonderful. Go Cry on Somebody Else's Shoulder, Motherly Love, How Could I Be Such a Fool, Wowie Zowie, which he always considered his sort of teen appeal song. You Didn't Try to Call Me, Anyway the Wind Blows. But then you get Trouble Every Day, which is just like incredible social commentary. Help I'm a Rock is starting to get into some really bizarre stuff, which is great. And then the side 4 is The Return of the Son of Monster Magnet, which just, it's just the beginnings of his sort of really experimental music concrete sort of thing. Zappa always said it was unfinished. He wanted to add more to it, but the record company said, "Nah, you're done." But I love it. Lots of percussion and just weirdness, and it's great. Love it. My number 3 is 1969's Hot Rats. Again, a mostly instrumental album, except for the song Willie the Pimp, which is sung by the great Captain Beefheart. But you've got the wonderful Peaches and Regalia, which I think is one of his greatest compositions. It's only 4 minutes long, but he packs so much into those 4 minutes. Son of Mr. Green Jeans is wonderful. Little Umbrellas, the Gumbo Variations, and It Must Be a Camel. This is the beginnings of what he would do later on with Grand Wazoo and Waka Jawaka and things like that. This is my favourite of those sort of jazz fusiony instrumental or mostly instrumental albums that he did. My number 2 is going to be 1975's One Size Fits All. Now this is coming from the same sort of period as Over-Nite Sensation and Apostrophe, but of those albums, this one is my favourite. It's got the incredible Inca Roads on it. I Can't Afford No Shoes. You've got Sofa number 1 and number 2, Pajama People, Evelyn, A Modified Dog, which is just kind of bizarre. San Bernardino. Yeah, it's just an incredible album. It's my favourite from that period, and as you can see, it's number 2 on my overall list, so it's an album that I really, really adore. But my number 1 was always going to be my number 1. It's an album I fell in love with as a teenager, when I just pulled it out of the same box of records that I pulled out Starless and Bible Black and Brain Salad Surgery. That one night when I was a teenager just blew my mind musically. And that is 1968's We're Only In It For The Money. I think this is the most conceptually successful album that Frank Zappa ever did. Just incredible songs, but the whole concept. You've got the sort of skewering of the so-called phony hippies. This is really an album made by a Los Angeles band criticizing the San Francisco hippie scene as being sort of phony and fake as compared with the Los Angeles sort of freak scene. But you've also got songs from 1968, no less, where Zappa is basically saying ACAB about the cops, you know, that they're shooting people indiscriminately. I mean, that's relevant today. And this album was released before I was born. Just incredible songs. You know, you've got Who Needs the Peace Corps and you know, Mum and Dad and Bow Tie Daddy, Harry You're a Beast. There's so many little short songs. You've got the song Absolutely Free, which the previous album was called Absolutely Free, but the song Absolutely Free is on this album, and it's just one of my absolute favourite songs that Zappa ever did. Hey Punk, you know, Flower Punk rather, which, you know, is sort of a bit of a rip of Hey Joe. Just incredible stuff. Let's Make the Water Turn Black, The Idiot Bastard Son, all these little short songs that run into each other and just build up this overall concept You know, you've got the both parts of What's the Ugliest Part of Your Body, one on side one, one on side two. Mother People, just an incredible song. And then it ends with the music concrete that is the chrome-plated megaphone of destiny, which is just an incredible way to end this album. Far and away my favourite Zappa album, and I love all of these albums and plenty that I didn't mention in this top 10, but this one will always be my favourite. So going back through them, my number one is We're Only In It For The Money. My number two is One Size Fits All. My number three is Hot Rats. My number four is Freak Out. My number five, Apostrophe. My number six, Over-Nite Sensation. My number seven, Waka Jawaka. My number eight, the Grand Wazoo. My number nine, Burnt Weenie Sandwich. And my number 10, rounding out my top 10, is Weasel's Ripped My Flesh. So that's my top 10 Zappa and the Mothers albums. Please let me know in the comments which ones of these are your favourites. Tell me which ones out of his vast catalogue you think I should have included in my top 10, because I'm sure there's a whole bunch. I'm sure people will have a top 10 that doesn't include any of these albums. Such is the vastness and the variety of Frank Zappa's catalogue. But please do let me know in the comments. I love reading the comments. I always try to respond where I can. Please like, share and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please have a look at some of my other videos. I have all my videos playlisted, so if you want to look at my other Studio Albums Ranked shows, I have a playlist for that. If you want to look at my anniversary album shows, I have a playlist for that. If you want to look at my In Defense Of series, playlist for that. My reviews, I have a playlist for that, and so on and so on. If you want to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at bicyclelegs. On Instagram, I'm mostly posting the records I happen to be listening to at the time, as well as channel updates. Twitter, I tend to talk about anything and everything, but I am definitely trying to give that more of a music focus. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.